Baseball was different back then, than it is now, and that's one of the big differences as far as just the popularity. Not that it wasn't popular, but Coach DeBryant built the program, and then obviously Coach Van Horn has taken it to a new level, with the facilities and the consistency and the attendance and those types of things. The attendance was never not as big. You weren't on TV. That part of it was actually kind of an escape for me, back then, from the football kind of being in the limelight, press media, a little closer scrutiny. The hard part for me was when we went on the road in the SEC and I pitched. After a year or two, they became familiar with that I played football, and boy, they would zero in on me and give me a hard time, because fans in the SEC are pretty brutal. Looking back on it, I mean, it really was no different than what I had been used to in high school, just kind of going from one to the other to the other. Really, the only year that I experienced what Connor's going through was my first year, very similar to his situation. My first year, I had won that starting job, but then as a quarterback, my freshman year, then we bring in Coach Ford, a new coach who changes the offense. And so my first instincts were like, I've got to battle to keep this job. And so I thought it was wise, after counseling with my dad, that I would be available for spring football practice, then go do baseball. It created a challenge, there's no doubt about that. I think my baseball suffered more from it than football did, but I've never had any regret about doing it. I never once have thought, man, I wish I'd have done this, or I wish I'd have done that. I never had any regret, because I've made a lot of friends in both sides, a lot of lifelong friends. I had a lot of great experiences. I had some ups and downs in both sports, but I would never regret doing it.
Strikeout number 5 for Connor Noland.
Wow, that's impressive.
If you asked Connor, and if you probably would have asked me back then, I would have kind of just brushed it off of like, I'm just playing ball, And therein probably is the key to that success, is the fact that it's not something that he actively thinks about. He's just gifted. And I'm not saying that to say that I was. I'm just saying, knowing him and knowing what he's been through and how he handles it, he's an incredibly gifted young man. And I'm not talking about just with arm strength or throwing a ball, but just his maturity and his poise, and it's impeccable. And that's why he's able to handle it. His dad and mom and I all went to grade school together. His dad and I played Little League football and Little League baseball together, so I've known the Noland family for lots of years. That's been actually really fun to see old Frank Noland's son and Angie's son to grow up and do the things he's doing here at Arkansas, because I know I can certainly appreciate how he feels about getting this opportunity, because he could have gone to a lot of different places, but I don't think there was ever even a doubt in his mind where he wanted to go. Obviously he's not the first one that's done it, and there's always somebody recruiting every year says, Coach, I might want to, I may not want to give up basketball. Okay, well, come on, let's look at this guy, he's doing it, I heard Coach just a while ago meet with a recruit and tell him about an experience he had with a player at Clemson that did 2 sports, and we've all had that in our background. And sure, I think that's a good thing. I think it's been good to see. Here's what we got good men as our coaches here on staff. In our men's sport, Coach Anderson and Coach Van Horn, and obviously with Coach Morris. You got good people. When you got good people, and you get a chance to get a high quality player, you work together, and that's what those guys have done, and I foresee that continuing to happen.